We appreciate all those that traveled so far. We know there are always people that come and stop in and have to go, and we saw that with some of you came a long ways, some of you didn't come a long ways. But thank you for coming, thank you for staying. We know you're going to be blessed for sure, absolutely. And so we're just going to ask Darlene again, come on up if you want to come on up, and we hope everything's working. Looks like it all is. I want to thank our tech guys here, Herman and Samuel, that are keeping things running. Really are doing a fantastic job for sure. So great job. I hope you enjoyed the morning. I know I did. And we're going to hear some good things about here, but we're going to just have a word of prayer before we start. Is that okay? Dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful for your love to us. We can see it in so many ways. And the way you made our bodies, the way you designed us, so many amazing features and facts about, and we haven't even scratched the surface, dear Lord. We know there is so much more to learn throughout eternity. And we're thankful for learning about this and how to take care of these bodies that you've entrusted us with. We want to be faithful to that stewardship. And we thank you for Darlene and Ron who have traveled out here and the blessing that they are bestowing on us. Thank you for that and for the good lunch we had. Help us to have a good afternoon and to learn more things about staying healthy and staying active for you. We ask this in your name we pray. Amen. Okay. Somebody's little Bible here. Is this Svetlana's? Or okay, good.
Could I get a hand, Mike? That might be.
We got lots of hand help.
I'll probably just hear it. This is perfect. Thank you. I'll look here anyways now. Is it on? Yep. Oh, it just got wiggled out. Well, yep. Oh, good, good. Okay. So let's begin. This afternoon, the talk is Nutrition Strategies to Prevent and Reverse Diseases. Now, am I standing in your way? Everyone can see past me? Oh, I see. Okay. Well, just wait. Oh, okay. Sorry. Sure. Oh. Ah. So you're saying I'd keep you busy if I kept walking back and forth? Oh, okay. Everyone fed up? That was a lovely lunch, so thank you everyone who provided. It was delicious. We're well fed. Hopefully the warmth and nice full bellies now and comfy soft seats so I won't hear too much snoring. If I hear snoring, just to warn you, I have a balloon with a pin up here if I see anyone doze, so that should keep you on your toes. Yeah. Good. Okay. So thank you for staying this afternoon. And so nutrition strategies to prevent and reverse diseases. So as we begin, what are some factors that cause the majority of deaths? This is the neat thing about it. Here are the factors. One is poor diet, inadequate exercise, and other lifestyle factors. Who has control of those three things? You do, right? So that's the exciting good news about it, right? We have control. cancer and heart disease, these are the two leading causes of death in Canada, responsible for just over 1/2 of all deaths. So let's talk, first of all, a little bit about heart health, okay? Heart disease, the #1 killer in the entire world. You hear of atherosclerosis. This is a buildup of cholesterol, fat, and other substances that damage artery walls. So the early phase, when you begin to see something happening, is what we would call the fatty streak. Atherosclerotic plaque is the scar-like damage on the artery wall. This plaque roughens up the lining of the artery wall, causing turbulence then in the blood flow and narrowing the artery, making it difficult for the blood to get through. Usually, the symptoms themselves don't show up until your artery is 90 to 95% blocked. Plugged or blocked, or the person suffers a heart attack. When fat accumulates on the inside of the coronary arteries or any artery, the body reacts to prevent a blood clot by covering these fatty deposits with a tough fibrous cap. So your body works amazing. Every time something is subjected to something that it knows it's going to hurt it worse, it has ways of protecting itself. Now, those ways of protecting itself isn't always, it's a Band-Aid, right? So it doesn't always take care of the problem, but it's protecting the situation, which is this case. So it's important to have that fibrous cap, because if fatty material is allowed to come in direct contact with the blood, it can stimulate then the blood to clot. So the fibrous cap protects against that deadly clotting. Okay? Now, unfortunately, atherosclerotic plaque, it can eventually over time ulcerate. So that hard cap will now break open, and a combination of fibrous and fatty material is then poured out into the bloodstream. So you've got that cap to protect it for some time, and eventually, though, it'll ulcerate, and then you're back to a bad situation. Now, the platelets in your blood try to heal it once again. And so it begins to stick to the wound in the artery, trying to stop that flow of blood, and tries to heal the damage. When the clot becomes so large, what happens then? It blocks the artery, and no blood can flow through. And so then you get a lack of circulation, which then means the heart isn't getting any oxygen and nutrition, and the muscle tissue begins to die, diminishing that heart function. So interesting enough, your heart is one big muscle. When your heart muscle dies, it cannot be reversed. So it's really important to protect it the best to our ability. 9 out of 10 heart attacks may be actually preventable. So that's quite something, isn't it? Atherosclerosis is present in age 20, now common in even ages 10 and younger. So that first fatty streak that I showed you, where it begins, that fatty streak, very common today in 4 and 5-year-olds. So I don't know if you ever open the newspaper and look at the obituary column, right? And you start to read of all the different people that have passed away, the age and why. You're noticing younger and younger people dying of heart disease, are you? Yeah, and this is why. It's not unusual to have significant coronary artery blockages that reduce the diameter of an artery by more than half by the age of 40. And that's why they say, oh, you know what? You have 3 arteries that are kind of, getting there, but they're only like 60%. We're not too worried. We don't worry until it's at least 70. Well, ideally would be to keep it as low as possible, right? Now, what if you waited until you have these symptoms? Is it worth it? Like many of you might be sitting there and saying, well, I don't have a heart issue, so good thing I don't have to worry about it. Well, prevention is a key, right? You want to prevent. But do you know in 50% of all cases, the first symptom of a heart issue, do you know what it is? Instant death. In 50% of all cases, instant death. So if you're actually waiting to have a heart symptom to try to do something about it, it might be too late if you're in that first 50%. Now, can you go by how someone looks? Do you ever do that? You see someone, you go, oh, wow, they are fit, they are good. And when something happens to them, you go, wow, I never saw that coming. How could that be? Or somebody else, you go, oh, they're a walking heart attack, right? We can tend to do that. We kind of judge people and look and assume. But you can't go by what's on the outside, always what's in the inside either. I mean, many times we can. I mean, we can assume, right? But, how many of you have ever heard of the CHIP program? Did you ever hear of the CHIP program? Some of you, this half has, this half hasn't. Oh, okay. Yeah, we needed some balance here. Thank you. But the CHIP program, it stood for Coronary Health Improvement Project. And it was put out by a doctor, Dr. Hans Deal, out of Loma Linda Hospital there. And this program went worldwide, helping people reverse heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, this type of thing, following more of a plant-based diet and lifestyle. And so my husband and I, we actually were volunteers for this program. And it's like a 3-month commitment. And it's quite a large program. People are coming like 4 days a week for 4 weeks. And at the start of it, we do a full blood draw and heart evaluation and all this stuff. And we do it at the end as well. Anyways, one of our phlebotomists who happened to attend our church, he would come and he would help us with the blood draw. And he would do it at the beginning and the end. And this one time he said to us, I need to take this program sometime. It just seems so interesting, but I'm so busy. And he was younger. He had a very young daughter, married, had a young daughter. And how old would I say he was? Maybe, how old would you say, Ron? Late 30s, 40? Anyways, he wasn't very old. And he says, yeah, one day I would like to do this CHIP program. I'm just too busy for it. He looked in shape. He looked great. Well, from our church, we have had a Pathfinder group, if you've ever heard of Pathfinders. And this Pathfinder group went down to a place called Oshkosh, and they had a big camporee there. And he drove down. He was one of the supervisors and drove down with his carload of kids. And he was a comedian. He was funny. He was a great person. And anyways, he got out of the car joking and laid flat on the ground. And they were like, come on, get up, that's enough, get up. He was instantly dead, died of a heart attack, sitting that many hours, ended up, did him in. And who would have guessed? And this whole time he would say to us, one day I want to do that program, one day, but I'm too busy. And so my proposal to you is don't let it go another day. Always try to find something to improve in, some way to prevent and make changes. Don't wait for the symptoms or the diagnosis to happen, right? It's harder to reverse than it is to prevent. So we mentioned about cholesterol. So cholesterol is part of that fatty substance that likes to stick on the wall and eventually has to have that cap over it and so forth, right? So cholesterol is something that we need to watch for. Now there's different kinds of cholesterol, right? Some people say, well, I need to eat foods with cholesterol because my body needs cholesterol. Have you ever heard that? Yeah, and so what it is, your body actually makes a good cholesterol, but it also has a bad cholesterol, and the bad cholesterol comes from the food that you eat. You don't actually need to eat cholesterol. Your body will make the good cholesterol. So here we are. Cholesterol is found in only animal products. Animal products have cholesterol. Plant products have no cholesterol. So again, going back to that CHIP program, one of the things that we would say as kind of a fun thing was if it has a face or a mother, then it has cholesterol. No face, no mother, no cholesterol, right? It's kind of a good way to remember it. So here's a question for you. Fish. Does fish have cholesterol? Yes, it has a face and a mother, right? It's an animal product. It doesn't grow in your garden, so it has cholesterol. And in fact, surprisingly, some fish is actually higher in cholesterol than even red meat. It just depends on the type of the fish. Okay, here's another question for you. What about coconuts? Do coconuts have cholesterol? That's a tricky question, huh? Does it have a face? Does it have a mother? So does it have cholesterol? No, that's correct. No cholesterol. So why is it that sometimes our doctors will even say, if you have high cholesterol, you shouldn't eat coconuts? right? You shouldn't eat olives, maybe, some of these types of foods. Why? The reason is, if you want to make a bomb, there's only 2 ingredients you need to make this bomb, okay? One is cholesterol, and the other is saturated fat. You put the 2 together, and you got a bomb. Animal products have both. Plant products have no cholesterol, but some of them have saturated fats. So if you are on a plant-based diet, let's say, and you want to eat coconuts and olives and all these foods that have peanuts maybe, that have more saturated fat, this will not put up your cholesterol because there's no cholesterol in it. It's just saturated fat. But if you are consuming animal products that have cholesterol and you're still eating the plant products that have saturated fat, you've got the 2 together, right? And that'll keep your cholesterol high or keep you from being able to get rid of that cholesterol. So you do have to watch more of those saturated fats in that case if you're consuming cholesterol still. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's look at some foods that have cholesterol. The higher the fat in the food, the higher the cholesterol, the more concentrated it is, okay? So again, your plant products have 0 cholesterol. Now, if you look at milk, we have non-fat, 2%, and whole milk, right? These are your cholesterol in milligrams. The higher the fat, the higher the cholesterol. So whole milk is going to have more cholesterol than skim milk, for example. But one thing to just mention here, when you see milk 2%, I used to drink this, and milk 2%, how much fat is in 2% milk? You would assume 2%, right? But it's incorrect. It's all marketing, and it's all based on volume and all this. 2% milk is actually 50% fat. So it's actually higher than what you think. So going more skim milk would be the better choice to go if you're going to drink milk, right? Much lower fat and lower cholesterol. And to get used to that, I remember when I changed from 2% to skim milk, it tasted like water, like white water. It was gross, right? But you can change your taste buds. They all change with you, and we'll talk about that. But first of all, take 2% and skim milk and mix it. And then eventually you'll get down to the skim milk. Or you could even do something better, and you can go for a plant-based milk. There's so many good plant-based milks out there now. Almond milk, you can do the coconut milk if you want, but cashew milk, oat milk now. And some of them, if you've never tried them, I encourage you to try them because they are totally different what the soy milks used to be back in the day. Those were gross back then. And now these milks are really nice options, and they have the good fat for you plus no cholesterol. So eggs, you'll see here the egg white has 0 and an egg has 213. So what's the difference? What is it that has the cholesterol? The yolk, right? Because the yolk is the nourishment of the egg for that baby chick. And that is where all the nourishment is. So if you want to avoid the cholesterol, then you would just do the egg whites, for example, okay? Tuna, clams, crab, and you go down the list here, and the more concentrated the organ, the fat, the higher the cholesterol. So a lot of times we think beef liver, right? For what reason? Iron, right? Oh, good source of iron, eat lots of beef liver. But look at the cholesterol. We're actually might be boosting your iron a little bit, but you're also boosting your risk of heart disease. And so the type of iron that you take in, if you need iron, you actually would want to push more of a plant-based iron. So those green leafy vegetables we talked about this morning are very high in iron. And here's the interesting thing. When it comes to beef liver, that type of iron is actually hard on your body to absorb. If anyone has ever taken iron pills from the pharmacy, what's the #1 side effect? Constipation, right? It just doesn't absorb. It's hard on the body. Now, if you take a liquid plant-based iron, there is no constipation. There's no side effects, and it's 95% absorption. That shows from the food that you're eating, not just that's a supplement suggestion. So the same idea, going with the beef liver versus lots of greens. And you know, one of the highest sources of iron is beet greens. I used to actually, Ron and I, one year, we planted beets just for the greens. We just put them all along there, and let them grow up, and then you just cut them off. And if you take them and put them into little Ziploc bags and freeze them, when you make a smoothie, you take it out frozen and put it straight in your smoothie. And it's a great boost of iron. Beet greens are higher in iron than the beets themselves. So very good source of iron. And then you're not going to get all the cholesterol. Caviar, beef brains. Now, you know what? This used to be a big joke for me. I used to always laugh and I'd say, out of everything else, avoid beef brains. And in fact, this slide comes from Dr. Neil Nedley. And he even laughs and would say the same thing. You know, whatever you do, avoid beef brains. And we'd laugh, ha, ha, ha. Do you know one of the popular supplements today in health food stores? Organs. So liver and beef brains. Beef brains have become number one popular for people that are working out, trying to gain muscle. They'll take beef brains by supplement form. Now, I haven't seen any of them get smarter. I mean, I kind of figure if you're taking a brain, maybe it'll help increase the brains. I don't know. I mean, they have thyroid supplement to help your thyroid and adrenal glands of animals to help your adrenal glands. So surely the beef brains would help our brains, right? I don't know. But anyways, it's supposed to give you muscles and make you strong. But look at that. We're like, well, you know, literally we can assume that we are walking heart attacks, aren't we? Okay, so what's another risk that comes with heart disease was blood pressure, right? High blood pressure. And I just heard on the news that they're actually lowering again the standard of blood pressure. So what normal is, they've lowered it again, which is kind of interesting. So the 120 to 29 over 80 to 84. This is the normal now, and so we kind of want to stay within that range. If you're higher than that, we would call this high normal. So at this point, they would normally not be putting you on medication, but I think they're considering 129 now to be the high normal, is what I just heard. So I'm not 100% what they're going on there. And the main reason is because they're having so much kidney issues. A lot of people's kidneys are being destroyed by high blood pressure, so they're trying to get people's blood pressure down a bit. And so this is normal, the top number, right? Your systolic number over the diastolic. So you have your upper is between 120 and 129 over 80 to 84. And once you're above this number, 140 over 90, then we would consider that high blood pressure. Now, what if you have lower than this normal range? We usually call it low blood pressure, right? Below 120 and below 80. We actually label it as optimal blood pressure just for the reason that when you have low blood pressure, if you tend to generally have low blood pressure, your heart just isn't working as hard, so it doesn't tire out as fast, and it's going to last longer, which is a good thing. Of course, if you drop way too low, that can be a risk in itself. We're not talking that, right? But there are some symptoms you can get if you have low blood pressure, such as dizziness or something. When you go to stand up, you feel lightheaded, kind of dizzy. So there can be some things that aren't so comfortable about that. One thing to keep in mind is to make sure that you're well hydrated. Anyone that has low blood pressure will dehydrate easy. So always making sure you're drinking enough water. So here are complications of high blood pressure. Of course, we can end up with strokes, congestive heart failure, heart attack, and the list goes on there, right through to even a weakened memory, mental ability, because the circulation to your brain is not where it needs to be as well. So, interesting enough, hypertensive subjects have 10 times the incidence of white matter lesions. So what does that mean? If you have high blood pressure, do you see these scans? Do you see these white matter lesions here? This means there is no blood flow. So you're not using that part of your brain. These are white matter lesions. Intelligence tests showed a lower level of overall brain ability and intelligence in those with white matter lesions because, again, you're not using the full capability of your brain, right? But this is interesting. Those lesions were present no matter how well the blood pressure had been treated with drug therapy. So we might have high blood pressure, we take medication, now our blood pressure looks good, the doctor's happy, but you still have this undergoing risk of things that are going on, such as these white matter lesions. So what would be a better way, if we could, to lower our blood pressure to avoid these white matter lesions? What would it be? If we could change our diet and our lifestyle, right? Now, I'm not telling you to go home and stop your medication, so I want to make that clear. I'm not saying that because we don't want you to go home, stop your meds, your blood pressure goes sky high and you end up with a stroke. That's not the point. Start to implement some of these ideas as you listen, some of the things with diet, some of the things with lifestyle, and keep checking your blood pressure. And slowly, hopefully, your doctor is able to taper you down off some of these meds if need be, or even if you cut your meds in half, it's that much better for you. All right, and the other thing is we end up with high blood pressure. We have significantly more brain atrophy. So your brain actually begins to shrink from high blood pressure. So here are some factors contributing to high blood pressure: obesity, lack of exercise, lack of water, alcohol, tobacco, coffee, a low fiber diet, which we'll talk about. Stress can do it as well. We know stress will put up your blood pressure, right? A high-fat diet. So we're talking animal saturated type fats or hydrogenated plant oils. They can be equally detrimental. And then excess sugar. So when someone comes in and they say, what do you recommend as a supplement for high blood pressure? One of the first things I recommend is garlic. And yes, you can take it in garlic odorless capsules so that you can still keep your friends. And it can lower your blood pressure. So here's the benefits, though, of garlic. It's not just going to lower your blood pressure. It's very good for anti-clotting activities. So, those blood clots, this is going to help so that they don't clot as well. It'll actually naturally thin your blood a little bit. Anti-tumor capabilities, antiseptic, antifungal, anti-heart disease. It's anti-everything, antibacterial, right? It works as a broad-spectrum antibiotic. Inhibits yeast organisms, lowers cholesterol and triglycerides, but especially will help lower blood pressure. And now there's even another garlic you can get that is called fermented black garlic. So sometimes fermentation, we think of alcohols, but this is a fermented form that would be something like sauerkraut, right? Where it's it's enhancing its abilities, but not the full fermentation effect. And this fermented black garlic is excellent for blood pressure and heart cardiovascular health as well. Garlic will stimulate your killer T cells, so very good for immune system. It's a powerful detoxifier. It'll even eliminate mercury from your body. Isn't that something? And you can eat 2 to 3 cloves a day, or you can take 3 capsules twice a day. It just depends. Depends on your strength of what you're taking. If it's an odorless garlic, you do want a nice strong one if you're doing it for blood pressure reasons. Okay. Have you ever heard of quercetin? During COVID, this one became quite popular, but it's plant-derived. It contains natural anti-inflammatory properties that can help prevent blood clots. Now, we actually promoted it during COVID because it works like a natural antihistamine. So quercetin is excellent when people have especially environmental type allergies. That's respiratory. It can be very good. But we also know it's very good for heart disease. Again, a health study showed those who ate apples regularly had a lower risk of death from both coronary heart disease and cardiovascular disease. So truly, an apple a day may actually help keep the doctor away, right? CoQ10, ever heard of this one? Okay, so CoQ10 is found in our foods, but it's relatively low in our foods. And this may be one nutrient best taken as a supplement. It acts as a natural antioxidant and energy producer for every cell in your body. Our heart muscles contain the highest amounts of CoQ10. So if you have a heart issue, CoQ10 could be very nourishing to the heart. An analysis of 12 clinical trials showed CoQ10 reduced blood pressure in patients with high blood pressure. So again, a good option for blood pressure. But get this, if you are on any cholesterol meds, statin drugs, these will actually pull it out of your body. So it'll deplete your CoQ10 levels. So if you're taking any form of statin drugs for cholesterol, you must supplement with CoQ10. Even the pharmacy in our town, that pharmacist tells people, take CoQ10 when people are picking up their statin drugs. Yes?
Okay, so
So CoQ10, it's an antioxidant found in our foods, but it's very, very low.
So it's an antioxidant.
And it's an antioxidant. Yes. Yeah. So this form, because it's low in your food, and especially if you're on statin drugs, it's pulling it out, you're not going to be able to replenish it fast enough. So that's why it's going to be concentrated in a supplement form in that case, in order to make up for the statins. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I'll explain the example. My wife takes it sometimes. She's taking it quite a bit now. But she had given me one just to try.
Yes.
I took that thing and I almost died.
How come?
I had no idea. I just passed out. Like, I almost passed out.
Wow.
Trying to stay awake and stay alive. I took one.
Yeah. And that's interesting. And sometimes it depends maybe if there's something else in it that you reacted to, like there are fillers or something with it, or I don't know, it's hard to say.
I was sick for a day.
Wow. And remember there's different strains. So was it a 200 or a 400 or a, do you know? Because there's like a 2. Yeah, so it's not terrible. And the other thing is when you are supplementing with CoQ10, look for the term in the ingredients, ubiquinol. Ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the form of CoQ10 that you want. All the other ones you don't want. They're useless. So you need ubiquinol is the active CoQ10. Yes? Right, low blood pressure. It shouldn't, because it's an energy producer, but I mean, who knows? Maybe that, do you have super low blood pressure?
I have low blood pressure.
Yeah.
I'm normal. I'm probably like below 120.
Yeah, so it's not super low. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's interesting. Right. So that shouldn't have done it. No, so I'm not sure. Yeah. It's not for you. Not for you. Yep. Good. All right. Next one, vitamin C. A lot of times we think of that for immune system, but vitamin C is also very good for the heart. It may lower your blood pressure a bit, help keep your arteries flexible as vitamin C, and prevents damage to the good cholesterol that your body is making, LDL, the good cholesterol. People with low levels of vitamin C are an increased risk of heart attack, peripheral artery disease, strokes, all of which can come from, of course, atherosclerosis. So vitamin C, very, very good. Now, what kind of foods have vitamin C? We always think of oranges and grapefruit, right? But look at all the other foods. Would you know that a banana has 10 milligrams, right? Baked potato and so forth. Your berries get higher. And of course, it gets a little bit higher as we get into some of these, a green pepper and orange. Now, I want you to look at this. You see an orange, one medium orange is 70 milligrams. Look at a green pepper, 66. They're almost neck and neck there, right? Keep looking. Strawberries, pink grapefruit. You know, we always go for, look at this, the grapefruit is higher than the oranges even, right? Now, orange juice is very concentrated, so the vitamin C is much higher, but so is the sugars because your fiber's been removed, right?
I thought vitamin C is killed when you boil things.
Oh, it does say both. Yeah, so it's probably higher if it's raw. Yeah. Vitamin C can die easily from heat. That is true. So that is the boiled form. Yeah, so it must be higher if it's raw. It's just most people don't eat them raw. But we like them raw. We actually cut them thin, like slice them thin and throw them in your salad. Yes? Okay. Yes. Exactly. Anytime you have the skin of an orange or a lemon or a grapefruit, you got the C and the bioflavonoids. The pith, the white part of your orange and your grapefruit, or the inside white part where the seeds are attached on your pepper, those are the highest in vitamin C. Can you believe that? And we usually throw it away. Okay, this is what I want to show you. See this red bell pepper? 1 medium raw, 141 milligrams. Compare that to an orange juice. You could eat peppers and you got way higher vitamin C. You know, I used to laugh when my husband and I were first married and he got sick. He's in here, so I can't talk too much about him. He had the man cold. And he was in his bed. He said, honey, I'm sick. And he says, go to the store and buy me a bag of peppers and some water. And I thought, boy, he is sick. So I did the good wife thing, and I went and got him some peppers, gave it to him, and he had water. And you know, the next morning, he was up and gone to work. You would never know he was sick. So now I joke and say he was the nutritionist before me. It's good. It's very good. And you notice the red pepper is much higher even than an orange, right? Or even higher than the green as well. Okay, there's other forms of vitamin C. So vitamin C is very water soluble. And then there is this kind. Have you ever heard of liposomal vitamin C? So liposomal means fat soluble. So vitamin C is usually water soluble, meaning it flushes you. And then when it becomes in the form of liposomal and it's fat soluble, it stays in the body and goes to the organs. And so you can take what is called a liposomal vitamin C, where it goes to repair, goes to the organs for repair, and it works actually like a natural chemo agent. It can work like chemotherapy. It's a powerful antioxidant, and it does not negatively affect your bowels. So regular vitamin C, when you're taking a lot of it and it's water soluble, it'll flush you and you'll be running to the bathroom, right? You could take lots of liposomal vitamin C and that won't happen to you. Folate, ever heard of that? Okay, so folic acid, it is a trace mineral. Again, the type of folic acid or in plant foods is in an active form of folic acid known as folate. And so folate is in your green leafy vegetables, your spinach, kale, Swiss chard, romaine lettuce. These are all high in folate. And it helps to maintain healthy levels of homocysteine. Have you ever heard of homocysteine? Homocysteine is an amino acid, and people with high homocysteine levels have been found to be at higher risk of heart attacks, vascular disease, and strokes. So this can build up, and this can build up in the blood. So what we'll do is at the end I'll answer questions if anyone has, because we're live streaming and filming this as well. So it's not picking up people's questions as easily. So hang on to your questions and then we'll try to answer them after, okay? And then maybe at that time we'll pass around the mic and then people can talk as well with their questions. Okay, so if you ever take a supplement of folic acid, you want to make sure you take one called folate, because that is the active folic acid. Okay, so if you're taking pills of folic acid, don't. They're not good for you. Make sure you're taking folate or something that says active folic acid. L-carnitine. This is an amino acid derived found foods. An amino acid derivative found in almost all of our cells. Essential for healthy cholesterol levels. So this is good for breaking down the fats into energy and helping your heart muscle function properly. So again, those who have had heart attacks, it helps to improve recovery and helps with exercise tolerance as well. So again, it's an amino acid found in any foods that contain amino acids for building proteins, which we'll talk about. Lycopene is anything that's red, so especially known in tomatoes. Tomatoes are packed with lycopene. Lycopene, which gives tomatoes its red color, is an antioxidant that has been associated with the reduced risk of heart disease once again. So even, it doesn't have to be fresh tomatoes. It can be spaghetti sauce, anything tomato, cooked tomatoes, raw tomatoes. Magnesium is another one, very good again for the heart, but it's good for a number of things of the body, for muscle relaxing, for sleep, helping people sleep better. Very good for regulating heart rhythm though. If your heart rhythm is up and down and all over, sometimes it's a lack of just magnesium. And stress causes you to burn a lot of magnesium. Walnuts and spinach are awesome sources of magnesium. Every organ in our body, especially our heart, needs magnesium to function properly. And so for the irregular heartbeat, arrhythmia, Very good for that. It can also help with blood pressure. So it's another one that can help stabilize blood pressure. Polyphenols, these are found in all your berries. Any berries, very high in polyphenols. So your blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. Again, can help with lowering blood pressure, help your blood vessels relax. So you got the polyphenols, and you've also got the vitamin C that's doing that same thing. And it'll help to produce your good cholesterol. Resveratrol, ever heard of that one? So this can be high in wine a lot of times. People say, oh, red wine's good for the heart, right? However, we can do something even better. Chocolate and red wine might be, have some resveratrol in it, but then we've also got the alcohol and all of that to deal with. So why not go for the actual fresh source, which is grapes? And the darker the grape, the higher in resveratrol. Now, this is known for nitric oxide production. Have you heard much about nitric oxide? That's become quite popular out there now, especially if, you're on Facebook or anything like that. Everything's about nitric oxide, which opens the valves to allow the blood to flow more freely. And so resveratrol helps to do this. So if we're looking at the statistics of Canada now, we mentioned heart disease and cancer are the two leading causes of death, correct? If we look at this, that's exactly what it shows. Now let's say we go down here and you can see all these other ones. What if I told you diabetes is an epidemic? It's down here. Do you believe diabetes is an epidemic? Yes, but it doesn't necessarily look like it here when it's way down here, right? Do you know what the majority of diabetics die from? Heart disease. That's right, heart disease. So they fit into that category. So let's go a bit through diabetes. Diabetes, simply having too much blood sugar. The levels are so high for so long, they eventually cause significant health complications if we don't correct it. The average person, let me not jump ahead here. If you were to have a fasting blood test, this is what they go by. So normal is now 3.9 to 5.5. Pre-diabetes would be up 5.6 to 7. And if you're 7 or more, you are a diabetic. Those are the criteria, okay? But this is interesting. The average person doesn't even know they have diabetes for at least 7 years before they are diagnosed. 20% of diabetes cases remain undiagnosed. Every 3 minutes, a Canadian is diagnosed with diabetes. And while the prevalence increases with age, more than 50% of Canadians diagnosed with diabetes, which is 1.2 million, are of working age between 25 and 64 years old. So it's definitely become an epidemic, hasn't it? 3.4 Canadians are living with diabetes today, and by the year, what year are we in? They have predicted this year that the number is going to reflect 5 million. So it's on a quick rise. Diabetes is costing the country billions of dollars, and at least 1 in 10 deaths are attributed to diabetes in Canada alone. So, how does it work? If we are a healthy person, we do not have diabetes, and you're digesting well, this is how it works. You eat a meal, you consume it, digestion begins, nutrients broken down. One of the most important nutrients is glucose. So a lot of times we think, oh, well, we don't want glucose. Glucose is bad for us. But glucose is the energy. It gives your cells the energy, right? It's critical for survival. It's the primary source of energy. The glucose then enters the bloodstream from your digestive tract and begins to circulate, and it causes your glucose to rise. Every single person, whether you have diabetes or not, when you eat a meal, your glucose is going to rise in your blood. If you tested your glucose right away after eating, it's going to be higher, okay? So the glucose goes from the blood, and what it's trying to do is get into your cells to provide that energy. And so to enter the cells, it needs a key because it is locked. And that key comes from what we would call insulin. And insulin is made by the pancreas. The pancreas promotes this hormone called insulin. So the insulin travels to the cell, it unlocks the door, and allows the glucose to come out of the blood into the cell to give it the energy. Pretty neat, hey? 4 or 5 hours later, you start to feel hungry. You kind of feel a little weakish. You need that energy again. And so we eat another meal, and the procedure starts all over again. Now, someone who has type 1 diabetes, this means your pancreas is damaged. So the pancreas does what? It makes insulin, right? That hormone, insulin, that is the key to open the door to let the glucose in. So if you have type 1, that means your pancreas is damaged and it doesn't make the insulin. So you never make the key to open that door. So you consume your meal, the glucose goes into the blood from the digestive tract, it raises, it's trying to get into the cells, right? No insulin comes. More and more glucose builds up in the bloodstream, and this can become very dangerous. If insulin is not provided as that key to get it into the cell, what'll happen? Death sometimes, within days or even hours. So controlling blood sugars decreases your risk of these chronic complications that can come with diabetes. It could be heart disease, high blood pressure, kidney failure, nerve damage, and even blindness. So it's important that to know with type 1 diabetes, you'll never make insulin, okay? So they always have to take insulin. Never tell a person who has type 1 diabetes, you know, if you ate and lived right, you wouldn't have to take that stuff. That's not true. If they stopped, they will die, okay? So a type 1 diabetic needs insulin. Do not tell them to not take that insulin. Now, diet and lifestyle will still make a difference for them. It'll help to stabilize their sugars that they don't get those other complications that we just mentioned at the bottom here. So it'll help to stabilize those sugars for that purpose. But they're going to live with it the rest of their life. Type 2, on the other hand, is a little bit different. Okay, so you eat your meal, it goes into the bloodstream, the glucose raises. Now in response, your pancreas is trying to make the insulin to open those cells. But you got to realize, years prior to this, the pancreas has been so overworked, being forced to produce enormous amounts of insulin in an attempt to stabilize the blood sugar levels. So unlike type 1, where there's not enough, it's actually overproducing it because it's trying to keep up and it overproduces it. So what happens? The insulin becomes what we would call resistant insulin. It's more or less like the key, but it's the wrong fitting key. It's not the right key to open the cells. So your receptors no longer are eager to let the insulin in or unlock the cells and allow the glucose in. And now we increase the amounts of insulin, controlling that blood sugar, and you need more and more and more, and your pancreas is wearing out. So after years of this, your pancreas can eventually burn out to the point that you can almost become a type 1 when you have type 2 too long and you don't control it. You will eventually come to that point, right? So that is where when people go on pills to control their sugars and they're still not controlling their sugars, eventually you have no choice but to give yourself injections because it's to that point that your pancreas just burns out and there's no more. So type 1, again, is only 5 to 10% of the population. We used to call this childhood diabetes. Right? The young children who were born with a problem with their pancreas. Type 2 is what we used to call adult onset diabetes. This usually came from older age when things just weren't working quite as well. Today we have children who have type 2 diabetes, and it just goes from there. So why do you think children are having type 2 diabetes now? Because of diet? Right, and lifestyle, right? So much sedentary things. We sit behind computers, we sit and watch TV, we're sitting, and then our diet. So much sugar in refined foods and fats and so forth. So the good news is, again, it is preventable. And good thing, type 2 diabetes accounts for the majority of cases. And the best way to say goodbye is not to say hello. So when we are reversing it, there is hope, right? And so again, the same good healthy habits can help stabilize type 1 diabetics, but type 2 diabetics can actually reverse it completely if they are willing to work with diet and lifestyle. So while high protein intakes do not appear to affect glycemic control, isn't that the type of diet that we're told? What kind of diet, when you go to a doctor or a dietitian and you have diabetes, they'll tell you to eat more protein, right? So then we end up on all this animal protein, and so that can help with glycemic control, but then we can end up with other damaging ways, which we talked about could be the heart issues, right? And this is why when I mention that a good majority of diabetics end up dying of heart disease because they've got these other factors involved. Protein above 20% of our calorie is associated with declining kidney function. Now, when we say protein above 20% of our calories, we're talking animal protein. They did studies with plant protein and they did studies with animal protein. And you could eat tons of plant protein and it never affected it. It was all the animal protein because it's so concentrated and has no fiber, which is what we'll mention next. So we're ending up with more and more kidney issues coming from high sugars, from diabetes, and it's a predictable downhill course from there. High-fat diets can be linked to insulin resistance. So a lot of times when we think diabetes, we always think sugar, right? It's the sugar problem. Too much sugar goes into the blood, how to get it into the cells. But one of the things we don't talk about is even a bigger problem is saturated fat. And saturated fat will actually block the insulin receptor so that the insulin key does not fit. And where do you find saturated fat again? Animal products, right? Some plant products have it. And when you think about coconut or some of these peanuts, peanut oil, it's saturated, meaning concentrated. So when you are choosing to eat that oil, don't eat it in large amounts. It's very concentrated. So you want to be within reason of those oils. But the saturated fat from animal fat is especially one that will block those insulin receptors. So instead of pushing the high animal protein to control sugars, we go the opposite way and we promote a high carbohydrate, high fiber diet. And why? Well, it'll improve your gastrointestinal function. It'll reduce our body weight if we need, and it'll reduce the risk of kidney damage. Therefore, it'll reduce your insulin requirements and improve your glycemic control. So again, here are all the factors that can contribute to diabetes. Do they look familiar from the other ones that we've been showing you so far? It's kind of interesting because it starts to look like a one-all cure-all diet. And in a way, it sort of is. We were all created, right, to eat certain foods, live certain ways. And when we give the body the fuel and the knowledge or whatever it is that it needs, the lifestyle it needs, it's able to heal and protect itself, right? So when we think of carbohydrates, we're always saying, well, carbohydrates aren't good. They'll put your sugars up. Well, there's two kinds of carbohydrates. We have complex and simple carbohydrates. They're divided into two categories. Simple is your white bread, your white pasta, your white rice, your cake, your pies, your cookies, anything that is refined. So otherwise, it has very little or usually no fiber. It'll add directly to your body fat, and it contains a high number of calories, but few nutrients. So to explain that, simple carbs are what we would call empty calories. So there's lots of calories, but very little nutrients, okay? Whereas if we go complex carbs, it's the opposite way. Complex carbs are your fruits, your vegetables, your grains, your legumes, food is growing. And it'll help actually slim you down. So when people say, no, don't eat carbs, they'll make you fat. Well, look at this. They are naturally low in calories, they cannot add directly to your body fat, and they'll increase your metabolism. Do those three things sound like they're going to make you fat? No, quite the opposite, right? So why is that? These are what we call full calories. You have less calories, but they are packed with nutrients. So those are what we want to take into our diet. So what should your diet actually look like? This is the easier way to do it. If you were to have a plate and you pictured that plate, instead of calorie counting, I'm not a person that enjoys calorie counting. That's why I'm not a dietitian. I do not like weighing food and counting it and all that. Most people get discouraged and tired of it, right? So instead, picture your dinner plate and make 2/3 of that complex carbs. Foods is growing, high fiber, right? 2/3 of that. The other third is going to be your protein, and sometimes that'll go over into one of the other areas. So for example, let's say you had a nut roast or something, okay? A nut roast is going to give you protein, but it's also going to have in the nuts a bit of the fat, and then you're going to have some of the whole good fiber. Maybe something else is in there, rice or something, that's going to fall into the carbohydrates. So sometimes they overlap each other. But as a general rule, 2/3 carbs, 1/3 protein, and your fat is your garnish. So I've had people who say to me, okay, so let's say I have diabetes. Let's say I follow your protocol, and afterwards I reverse my diabetes. Does that mean I should be able to go and eat 3 chocolate bars and have no issue? No. I ask you right now, if you ate 3 chocolate bars, would you have an issue even if you're not diabetic? Yes, right? That sugar is going to be pumping in your blood sky high, and you've got to figure out a way, your body's got to figure out a way how to get that out of there and into your cells and get rid of it, right? So I had one gentleman who said to me, well, then you didn't cure my diabetes, did you? And so, yes, there's nothing to do with that. None of this is good for us. To sit and eat 3 chocolate bars wouldn't be good for any of us, right? Whether you have diabetes or not. And so there's other aspects to sugar other than just putting your sugars up and being a diabetic. It can actually have a direct link on your immune system. So take a look at this. If you were to have no sugar, we're talking refined sugar. We're not talking to eat a strawberry here, okay? We're talking refined sugar. So if you had no refined sugar, no teaspoons of sugar, then your immune system would be working optimally right now. So that means each of your white blood cells are able to kill how many bacteria? At normal, 14 bacteria. Every white blood cell should be able to go out and kill off 14 bacteria. If you had 6 teaspoons, now every white blood cell will kill 10 bacteria, okay? 12 teaspoons, 5.5. So what's happening? As you increase your sugar, your immune system, your white blood cells actually immobilize and paralyze, and they can't move. They can't go and fight in your behalf. They're too sluggish and slow, and they just can't do it. And so as we go down here, 24, every white blood cell is now only able to kill 1 bacteria. What kind of immune system would you have at this point? Basically nothing, right? So how many teaspoons of sugar does the average person eat in a day? Any guesses? 10? Any other guesses? 36. Sorry? 36 to 50? That's a good guess. The average is 35 teaspoons of sugar. Now, if you're a pop drinker, it's definitely way up there as well, right? But the average person, if you can imagine, is taking in 30 to 35 teaspoons of sugar a day. So then what kind of immune system do we have? We don't, right? And no wonder cancer is on a rise as well. And so just to kind of show you where some of these sugars can hide, like if you look at jam and jelly, 1 tablespoon is 3 teaspoons of sugar. How many teaspoons in a tablespoon, by the way? 3. So it's pretty much all sugar, right? Canned fruit, even in a light syrup, 1 serving has 8 teaspoons of sugar. So it's hidden in our foods. Do you know Sifto salt used to have sugar if you read the ingredients? People caught on to that. And so eventually Sifto salt stopped putting sugar in it. Why would they put sugar in salt? Yes, it makes you addictive. It makes you crave more, that sweet, salty thing on your taste buds, right? So you'll crave more. Ketchup should be on here. Did you know ketchup, ounce for ounce, has as much sugar as ice cream? So you're not going to sit and eat as much ketchup as you would ice cream probably, but ounce for ounce, it's definitely up there, right? So anyone that's a pop drinker, a can on average can be 10 to 12 teaspoons. And a malted milk, look at that. Malted milk, you know what that is? Some people say, well, what's a malted milk? I think it's like Wendy's when you go for a Frosty at Wendy's, the soft chocolate malted milk. When I was a little girl and my mom would take me to the mall and maybe we had dentist or doctor or something, at the end she would reward me with a healthy treat. Malted milk. She thought that was healthy. Then I started to tease her that she almost killed me. But who knew, right? It's like that was a healthier choice over pop. Not really. They hide it where you don't know. Okay, do you need a little bit of a stretch? How do you feel? Yeah? Okay. Let's just do a quick couple of minute break. If you need the washroom, you need a drink of water, and just kind of stretch, get a breath of fresh air, and then we will continue. Okay, we're going to begin again. So I know this is to end at about 4:30, so I have lots of info. We got to pack her in here. Okay. There's so much info that we could share. I know some of you are saying, what about this? What about this? What about that? And how about this? There's so much that there's not a chance we could pack it all in this afternoon. But we will do our best. And so we will continue. So fasten your seatbelts, and here we go. Okay, so a lot of times when we have high sugars or diabetes, what the doctors will recommend that we use different types of artificial sweeteners, right? So that they have 0 grams of sugar. But this can be an issue. This can come in some of our foods like diet sodas, yogurt, anything like that, right? They mimic the flavor of sugar, but they have no useful energy. So things, you might recognize some of these. The 5 dangerous sugar substitutes, especially 5 dangerous, would be saccharin, right? That one you'll pick out. And sucralose, aspartame, those are kind of the more common ones we hear of, right? And they're very dangerous. So look at sucralose, for example. We won't get into a big biochemistry type thing or chemistry class right now. But the preparation basically is chemically changing the structure of the sugar molecule by substituting 3 chlorine atoms for 3 hydroxyl groups. So the bottom line is chlorine is a carcinogen. So when we get sucralose, you've got chlorine added to make that sugar, which is not good. It's a carcinogen. What about aspartame? The additive is sold under the names Equal, NutraSweet, and there are thousands of everyday products containing aspartame. But this is an interesting thought. Look at this. U.S. Air Force pilots were warned not to consume aspartame in any amounts at all. Why? Aspartame has been investigated as a possible cause of brain tumors, mental retardation, birth defects, epilepsy, Parkinson's, fibromyalgia, and diabetes. Now, isn't that interesting? What's the last one? Diabetes. Well, that's so weird, right? Possible cause of diabetes? Here we are being told to use aspartame if you have diabetes, and it's actually progressing the disease. So instead, we want to go for natural sweeteners. Maybe agave, xylitol, stevia. Have you heard any of those before, right? Maple syrup, honey. So agave is a cactus plant, and it's extremely low impact on blood sugar and cholesterol levels. So it's got inulin in it, which is a plant fiber. And that plant fiber is what helps to control that. That's also known as a prebiotic. If you ever hear of probiotics, inulin is a type of fiber found in your plant foods that help you absorb your probiotic. Xylitol is another one. Now, xylitol can come from birchwood, or it can come from corn silk. Corn silk can cause digestion issues. So if you're going to do xylitol, go with the birchwood one. And basically, you use the same amount, cup for cup, in your recipes and so forth. It tastes like sugar, looks like sugar. It's 40% less calories. Recognized by dentists worldwide as a sweetener because it can actually help prevent cavities. So if you've seen gum and mints called Pure, the Pure mint gums, that's just xylitol sweetened. And so if you don't have a chance to brush your teeth, chewing a piece of that gum can kind of help protect your teeth, actually. But it is a popular sweetener for diabetics because it's absorbed slower and does not contribute to those high levels of blood sugar. All right? So, this one, stevia, everyone's heard of stevia. Stevia comes from a natural plant. The leaves are naturally sweet. If you've ever had a stevia plant, you can just pick a leaf and bite it, and it's very potent. So you can take the leaves, throw it in the blender if you're making pudding and things like that to sweeten it, or you can buy it in a powder. So be aware, the plant is 40 times sweeter than sugar, and the powder is 200 to 300 times sweeter. So 1 teaspoon of stevia powder is equivalent to a cup of sugar. So you really have to be careful when you're using it and kind of get used to it. But stevia is the number one to use if you are diabetic especially, has no calories and 0 grams of sugar. But the neat thing is this, it actually can help balance blood sugar levels. So if you're feeling you're dipping or it's going one way or another, you can make yourself maybe a herbal tea and put some stevia drops into that, and that could actually help balance your sugars a little bit. All right, so I just want to go back because I know a couple came in late and I want you to see this. We were just talking about aspartame, and on the side there is really interesting with the US Air Force. And so we were just saying here with the diabetes, it can actually cause or worsen it or cause it. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And this one, we were talking about sucralose. It has chlorine in it, and these are the ones especially, of course, you've heard of many of those. So I just wanted to touch on that so you didn't miss it. Okay, talking about fats. We have a good fat and a bad fat. Did you know that? A lot of times, way back in the day, we would say anyone that, usually it was the term vegetarian. I'm vegetarian. And the first thing you would think of is, right? Because you'd picture this skeleton feature, pale white, sunken in eyes, looks sick, ready for death, right? And so it's like, well, I'll never be a vegetarian because they look really scary. Well, that's because we didn't necessarily understand all the nutrients and what was necessary and what wasn't necessary. And we took the word fat and we thought it was a 3-letter swear word, and we put it out and we said we're not allowed to have any fat whatsoever. And that's a bad thing. You actually need fat, but you need the right fat. We need a good fat. And so instead of getting into long terms and heavy words, everyone knows good and everyone knows bad, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. So these are your bad fats. Your bad fats would be your saturated fats that we talked about. Saturated, concentrated, in excess amounts. So saturated animal product or saturated even plant product in excess amounts isn't necessarily good. So while I'm on that, before I forget, when it comes to the diabetes thing, anyone who is diabetic or dealing with high sugars, as saturated fats such as peanut oil, I find peanut oil plays havoc on people's blood sugar levels. So if you are watching your sugars and you need to lower them or control them, eat almond butter instead of peanut butter, okay? Because the peanut oil can cause a problem. But for the average person, it should be okay, but again, not in excess amounts. Or heated unsaturated fat. So we take a good fat and we heat it, and now it becomes what? A hydrogenated trans fat. And that's bad for us. So what would a good fat be? A good fat is known as essential fatty acids is the term. So we have our omega-3 and omega-6. There's also omega-9. You've probably heard of those. They sound familiar, right? So omega-3 and omega-6 are the two big ones you want to kind of pay attention to. So when we're talking the omegas, omega-3 and 6, these are all the benefits. They're anti-inflammatory, anti-pain. What type of people would especially benefit from these kind of fats? Someone with arthritis. Yes, someone with arthritis. So the good type of fats. Now, if we were to put it side by side to animal fats cause inflammation and they cause pain. It does the opposite, the bad fats versus the good fats, okay? It's anti-blood clotting. Again, those type of other fats will cause blood clots. The good fat actually thins your blood slightly and keeps it anti-blood clotting. It lowers your blood pressure. The other type of fat raises your blood pressure, okay? Hormonal balance. Did you know omega-3 and omega-6 plays a role in hormone balancing? So sometimes menopause women will do primrose oil, which is omega-6, right? Flax seeds, walnuts, these are all omega-3. Regulation of good cholesterol, of your cholesterol levels. So these good fats help your body to make good cholesterol. Animal products give you bad cholesterol, right? So as you're eating these, it's going to increase your good cholesterol to do your overall cholesterol total. And it'll decrease your blood triglycerides. So that's the fat in your blood. Actually helps to move the blood and clean it in its own way. Stimulates your immune system. And so then, I don't know if anyone was, am I too fast? Okay, so here's some foods that contain omega-3. And again, Neil Nedley using his chart in this case, because some of these foods we don't think about. Like, would you think a banana? Did you know has omega-3 in it? Pretty neat. So a lot of times we're getting a lot of these nutrients in foods we don't even realize. So as long as you're eating a good overall balanced diet, you're getting all these different nutrients. But your highest sources of omega-3 would be your flax seeds and your walnuts. Now, what do the walnuts look like? A brain, yes. Omega-3 directly nourishes the frontal lobe of your brain, so cognitive function, memory, all of that. Depression, anxiety, that's where the omega-3 can be very, very helpful. Very few people realize essential fats are crucial to the health of their own and their children's immune system. So your body cannot make them. That's why they're called essential fatty acids. They have to come from the food that you eat. You have to take in that food or you just don't get it. And sadly, too many cases, especially when it comes to raising children nowadays, everything is from a box and a bag and a can, and there's no omega-3 in there. And then the kids are going to school and they're hyperactive and they're not focused, and now they're diagnosed when they go to the doctor with ADD and they're put on Ritalin, and this whole terrible thing happens to them when all it is a deficiency of omega-3. You give them omega-3 and you can see their world turn right around. Works amazing. Now we have something called monounsaturated fats. So monounsaturated fats, it should say. Avocado, olive oil, pecans, walnuts, these are all, but avocados are very good for that. So again, it's going to lower your bad cholesterol and help you to make good cholesterol. So avocados are excellent to include in your diet for that purpose. So you remember when I told you about your plate of food, 2/3 being complex carbs, 1/3 being protein, and then garnishing it with the fat, your fat being approximately 20% of your calorie intake or less, 18 to 20%. And as much as you can do with that, good fats if possible. So for example, based on a 2,000 calorie diet, that would be no more than 44 grams of fat in a day, and that's a 2,000 calorie diet. So that's 44 grams of fat. What would that look like? I'll show you coming up. Fat yields not only more than twice as many calories per gram of carbs or protein, but easily transferred to your fat stores. So when we talk about carbs making us fat, it's the fat. A lot of times the carb gets the bad end of the whole deal, when it's what we're putting on it is the problem, right? If you think about a slice of bread, what are we putting on the bread, right? If you think of a baked potato, what are you putting on that baked potato? So here gives you an idea of fat. Like 1 ounce of potato chips is 8.5 grams. So remember, a 2,000 calorie diet, you're allowed 44 grams in the entire day. So how many of you can eat 1 ounce and stop? It's not worth it, is it? How about 1 ounce of cheese? Do you know what 1 ounce of cheese looks like? It's about a centimeter cube. It can go as high as an inch cube, depending if you're going for the low-fat cheese. But how many centimeter cubes do you think is on a piece of pizza? There's a lot, right? How quickly that fat can add up without us realizing. As we get into the pure fats, butter, margarine, 10 to 11 grams, liquid is even higher, right? So even 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. Now, what about olive oil? That's a vegetable oil. It's liquid. It's a good oil, but it's still around 14 grams of fat in a tablespoon. So that's where we have to be aware. Anytime we're doing it in a liquid pure oil, those grams can add up really fast. So eating the whole foods with the fat a part of it is the best benefit. So like an avocado versus the avocado oil, right? And as you can see, one trip to McDonald's would do us in, right? So now I want you to compare this. 1 cup of rice is 1 to 2 grams of what? Fat, right? So we're not talking necessarily whole wheat or white or whatever here. The fat is lower. 2 slices of bread, 1 to 2 grams. 1 cup of spaghetti. Look at this. Boiled or baked potato, 0.25 grams, a 1/4 gram in a baked potato. How much in an ounce of potato chips? 8.5 grams. So it comes down to the food we're eating, making those wiser choices. Is this a diet of deprivation? How many potatoes can you eat to get to 44 grams of fat? Can you eat that many potatoes? Hope not. So we end up saying, well, you know what? This isn't good, man. This potato, it's got starch and it's going to push our sugars way up and it's got this and this. If you eat a baked potato, you got the fiber of the peel. If you eat the peel, right, it's got the nutrients as well. But what is the issue with this potato? Do you ever eat a plain baked potato? No, what do? We put butter on it usually, sour cream, cheese, yeah, that kind of thing, right? Fat, fat, fat. And before I had, gone more the way I've gone for my diet, I used to take a potato, cut it in half, put all that on. The butter, the cheese, the sour cream, all the above, eat halfway down, and of course, put more butter, more cheese, more sour to finish off the potato, right? And so when it came to, I was doing really good until it came to eating a potato and didn't know what to put on it. Now, I heard someone say salsa. Did you say salsa? You can make your own fresh salsa even and put on a baked potato. Is very good. You can do chili. Did you enjoy that cheese sauce you had at lunch today? That's a non-dairy cheese sauce. That is excellent on baked potatoes. There's so much you can put on the potatoes that you can enjoy until you are full and stay within your grams of fat. Now, part of the reason, too, when it comes to losing weight and that type of thing, not just the fat, but activity, right? So a lot of times, unfortunately, we are doing less than what's required for even good health. So we're not talking even going out and going for that brisk walk or that run. We're talking about any movement in general. Like I said, we become so sedentary that we're not getting enough movement to even have decent health. 54% of adults report little or no regular activity or physical activity. Most teenagers are not performing any regular vigorous activity unless they are involved in a sport. And obesity is increasing in both adults, children, and pets. Even our pets are becoming this way. And I know this sounds really weird, but honestly, if you go and you Google fat pets, people proudly put their pets on there. And they have obese dogs, cats. The things that really blew me away was when I saw a fat budgie that had to sit in the bottom of the cage and couldn't move, a fat hamster. And I'm thinking, how do they even come to this point, right? Like, we always joke and say eat like a bird. How does a budgie come fat or a hamster? But what we learned is what we've done even to our animals. When you want to treat someone well, what do? You take them out for a treat, right? So, or we give them a gift of candy, or we give them a sweet treat. And in reality, are we really treating them, or are we making them sick? This is what we're doing to our pets. We're giving a lot of treats. And if you go into the pet area and you have a hamster, you can find even hamster treats and hamster drops. And what's in them? Sugar, dairy. They're not made to even eat dairy and sugar and all this stuff, right? And we're giving those as treats. And so it's affecting all of us. And even our pets are not active anymore because why? We're not active. So we don't take our dogs for a walk, or our dogs need to take us for the walk is more like it. But that's the problem, right? We need to get out and do that. So we have something called fiber, and a lot of diseases can be associated with low fiber. When it comes to diabetes, you need to think fiber. Fiber, fiber, fiber. That is the key. And remember your complex and simple carbs. Simple carbs, no fiber. Complex carbs, loaded with fiber. if we don't have enough fiber, these are some of the diseases we can end up with. And you might look at them and go, well, they're not really diseases. I mean, constipation, varicose veins, those aren't diseases. Yes, they are. It means there's a circulation issue. There's other issues going on, and these are diseases. So fiber is divided into two categories, and we need both. There is no good, no bad here. You need both of these fibers. So the insoluble acts as a water-holding agent. What it's doing is increasing the volume of the stool and reducing the transit time of those intestinal contents. So it's getting things moving, right? Getting things moving. The water-soluble can actually help to lower our bad cholesterol levels. It can definitely help lower blood sugar levels or response and the amount of insulin that we require after a carbohydrate-rich meal. So what foods have these fiber? Anything plant-based has fiber. And the neat thing is it's got both kinds of fiber that you need. Anything that's fruit, nuts, vegetables, grains, and legumes. Insoluble fiber and soluble, both of them, the highest sources of fiber are found in legumes, beans, lentils, peas. These kinds of things have lots of fiber. Animal products, on the other hand, have zero fiber. This actually shocked me. I mean, I used to eat meat all the time growing up, and I remember, at the time when I was told this, I thought, no way. Like roast beef seemed pretty fibrous to me, but there's zero fiber in any animal products. And this is another problem that goes with the diabetes. We will increase our protein to the animal proteins. Now it has no fiber, and fiber is the key to controlling blood sugar levels, right? So other benefits that go along with fiber in the body, it's going to help with our cholesterol, our blood pressure, but also even just moving the toxins in the blood, getting the blood to cleanse. So then in saying all this, how do we get our protein, right? I keep kind of saying, well, not animal protein, not animal protein. Okay, so what do we do? Well, protein, first of all, is a nutrient that's found in food, and it's made up of what we call amino acids. And these amino acids are building blocks. And basically, I describe them like a train. They are the cars that attach in a train to build a protein. So how much protein do you actually need? The problem today is our diseases are not due to not enough protein. Our diseases today are coming from too much protein. So if we look, adults over 19 years of age, we need 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram. So how would you figure that out? Step one, you're going to take your weight in pounds, divide by 2.2 if you don't know it in kilograms, and that gives you your kilograms. Then you're going to take that answer and always times it by 0.8. Why? That's just the way it is. Okay? And so you'll end up with your average daily protein needs. So an average adult man needs approximately only 56 grams of protein, and a female about 46. Now, of course, children are going to be different. Pregnant, breastfeeding women, athletes, these might be all a little bit different. But as a rule of thumb, this is the approximation. Women about 45 to 50, and men 55 to 60. The average amount of protein taken in today, do you know how many grams? On average, about 180 grams of protein. And we're still saying, not enough protein, take some protein powder and do this and that. We're constantly pushing the protein. And this can be an issue. So where do we find it? It's found, of course, in animal products, as we talked about, right? Eating protein from a wide variety of food sources can help you get your iron, zinc, B12, calcium, and D, and so forth. Protein powders is another way, right? Your whey powder, adding additional to your diet. So let's step away from that and see what other foods might actually have it in. So as I said, these are building blocks. The human body can manufacture all but 9 of the 22 amino acids that make up your proteins. So those 9 become essential amino acids. Just like our essential fats, we have essential amino acids to make up the protein that have to come from your food. So the question is, can we obtain all 9 of these essential amino acids from just plant-based foods? Let's see. So here's one, arginine. Here's a number of foods that contain arginine. You'll see almonds listed numbers of times as well. Histidine, number of foods again, especially needed during infancy for proper growth and development. So I've put down here kind of the, the special thing that goes along with that amino acid. But in reality, we need all of them. Isoleucine, again, almonds, avocados, cashews. So the neat part about this is, as you're taking in these foods, you're not only getting this amino acid plus other ones, but it's highest in this one. You're getting those amino acids, but you're also getting what? Other nutrients. You're getting your vitamins, you're getting your good fats, you're getting, like the list just goes on when it's a whole food. This is leucine, another one. Lysine, ever heard of lysine? If you ever get a cold sore, it's from a lack of lysine. If you tend to get cold sores regularly or quite often, you should supplement with a lysine capsule. And if you do that, like a multivitamin idea, but you're doing a lysine every day, you will never get another cold sore. And if you do tend to get cold sores, I highly recommend the lysine for the reason that you are also at a high risk of getting shingles because they are related. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you're getting cold sores, really spruce up on your lysine. And one of the highest sources are your green brown lentils. Eating lots of green brown lentils are high in lysine. But that's still, for some people, especially if you're under stress, you'll burn a lot of lysine, and that's when you end up with those cold sores, whether it's physical stress, mental stress, or whatever. And that's where taking that supplement can help. Methionine is another one. This is known as the cleaner. This helps to remove heavy metals. So these foods, your black beans, are an exception to many other beans that are out there. It's one of the special beans that are have different nutrients. And by the way, I missed one. There is, have you ever heard of adzuki beans? Adzuki beans, I should have mentioned this on the diabetes one, but it wasn't a full diabetic talk. That's why I was missing some things. But adzuki beans actually have an enzyme special in them for people to help lower sugar levels. So it's kind of neat too. And then of course those beans got all the fiber, and it's got, again, all these amino acids. Again, phenylalanine, apples, beets, carrots. So during the break, we were talking about beets. I thought I had a slide up there when we were talking about the heart. I should have had one on beets. Beets is known for promoting your body to make naturally nitric oxide. And nitric oxide will naturally open the vessels to allow the blood to flow. So sometimes they're promoting marketing health things, buy the nitric oxide tablets for your heart. Don't do that. Just eat beets, drink beet juice. Beetroot is the key for that. But again, besides that, it's got this great amino acid in it. Threonine is another one. Tryptophan, ever heard of that? So we probably won't have time to get into that today, but tryptophan, because I have slides to help with melatonin to help you sleep at night, serotonin to make you happy during the day. How many of you have tried melatonin to help you sleep and it works? Okay. How many of you have tried melatonin to sleep and it doesn't work? Okay. Those that it works is because you need it, and those it doesn't work is because you don't need it. Your body's making enough, and that's not what the problem is why you're not sleeping, okay? But if you need melatonin, I usually say chances are you could probably afford to be happier during the day as well. And that is because serotonin that makes you happy, you need enough serotonin to make melatonin. And if you're not making enough melatonin, then you're not making enough serotonin. And so if we back up the train even further, what's before serotonin to make serotonin is tryptophan. So you need to increase your tryptophan to help you make serotonin to make you happier, and then you'll have more serotonin to make you melatonin so that you can sleep at night. Pretty cool. All right. Valine is another one. And so when people eat several servings of grains, beans, vegetables throughout the day and get enough calories, it's virtually impossible to be deficient in protein. And you can see, probably can't see, it's pretty small down here, but all the different foods and showing you all the different amino acids in the mixture. Some are higher and so forth, depending. But here's the neat thing. It used to be that when you go to eat, you have to make sure you have your rice and your beans and you figure everything out to have a complete protein. Do you remember that? And it's stressful. You know, it's like, how do I make sure I always get my complete proteins? Well, I'm happy to tell you it's all old school. They have learned that your body stores these amino acids, and they store it for a good 48 hours. So you can take in different amino acids, and your body automatically matches up what is stored to make complete proteins as an ongoing basis. And it's difficult to not get enough protein, complete protein. The only way that can happen is if you're restricting yourself to like 5 foods a day of the same foods. Eat a variety is the key, right? Eat lots of variety, and you will get sufficient protein. So how does the protein quality compare, though? Because people say, well, you know, plant protein is for the weak, and the animal protein is for strong, especially if I'm working out in the gym, I need all this protein. Well, when looking at a diet as a whole, animal sources of protein do not provide better quality of protein than plants. In fact, when it was studied with the 2 control groups of meat eaters versus lacto-ovo and vegans, and they measured the amount of each amino acid consumed by each group for their whole foods diet, amazingly, the best quality protein among these 3 complete diets was the pure vegetarian vegan diet. So it's because the foods are in a form that the body recognizes and absorbs at a very easy stage. Here's an example of some foods according to their weight for how much protein can be found. Now remember, women, we only need what? Between 45 and 50 approximately, men 55 to 60. And if you look here, like, you know, an avocado is only 2 grams based on a, 3.5 ounces, but this is why sometimes they promote peanut butter for good protein. But again, diabetics, careful with the peanut oil, but that's 25 grams. Almonds, just as good though, 21 grams of protein in just 3.5 ounces. Black beans, 21 grams of fiber. Isn't that protein? Isn't that great? You know, like it's just quinoa. And some of these are complete proteins already for you. They have all the amino acids that you need already there to go, such as your quinoa and your tofu. Green peas are a complete protein. So one of the arguments frequently, again, right? Meat eaters, they need it to build muscle. But what are some of the strongest animals in our world? Do you realize that they are actually plant eaters? These strongest animals, the most big, beautiful, strong, powerful. If you compare, we have a carnivore, we have the omnivore, herbivore, right? And so forth down to the human. And so what is the difference? I mean, one, you can see jaw structure and teeth. So most cases, most of us don't look like this. We look like this, right? Strong hydrochloric acid, you'll see for the carnivore, right? Strong hydrochloric acid, even the omnivore, meat and vegetables, strong hydrochloric acid. Herbivore, weak, right? Fruitarian, weak. And what do humans have? Weak hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid in the stomach is what breaks down the food to move it through. And when we eat animal products, we don't have strong enough hydrochloric acid. So it actually sits there and rots and deteriorates till it finally moves through. And then we've got those toxins building up in our bloodstream. Other things is your intestinal tract. Look at the intestinal tract, 1.5 to 3 times its body length. What do we have? 9 times our body length, right? That things move slow for us. It's just deteriorating as it moves through instead of digesting and moving through. The other thing would be the colon, short, smooth, alkaline. It's very short. We end up with colon cancer because we have a very long sacculated colon there. So it's very slow moving through. And that's why we rely on so much fiber to make the things move through. So again, Genesis 1:29, it is not a diet that you will starve on, right? It just comes down to making those choices. So is it better to get too much than not enough protein? Excess protein elimination strains the liver and the kidneys. So this is why so many diabetics go on a high protein diet, then they end up on dialysis eventually because their kidneys are giving out. Excessive protein consumption linked to different cancers, as we talked about, the colon, the intestinal tract. Things are slow moving. We'll end up with more breast, prostate, pancreas cancers. Kidney disease, osteoporosis is higher in people who eat and drink milk, eat and consume animal products. We always think, well, milk is good because it's high in calcium. But the type of calcium it is, it actually doesn't absorb well, and because of that animal protein, the blood pulls the calcium back out of the bones. Look at here. Animal proteins are high in sulfur-containing amino acids, especially cysteine and methionine. Sulfur is converted to sulfate, which tends to acidify the blood. During this process of neutralizing this acid, the bone dissolves into the bloodstream, filtering through the kidneys into the urine. Meat and eggs contain 2 to 5 times more of these sulfur-containing amino acids than found in plant foods. So you've got that sulfur that is going through, but also it tends to leach the calcium from the bones to balance out the pH levels of the blood. The pH levels of the blood has to stay always where it needs to be. Cannot go acidic. Instantly, it's got to do what it takes to alkalize that. So, as I said, do we have to focus on complete proteins? No, your body matches it up automatically. Did you know a vegetarian diet helps rheumatoid arthritis? Very good. Remember we talked about the omega fats? We said it was good for inflammation and pain. So following a vegetarian diet can make a big difference for even rheumatoid arthritis. And this is after 1 month and 1 year, rheumatoid patients enjoyed a decrease in overall, in the end, total body inflammation. And I saw this firsthand in my mother. I got deeper into what I am today because I saw the change in her. Growing up, my mom had serious rheumatoid arthritis. Her wrists were fused, her finger was fused, she had it in her jaw, her back, her feet. To go for a walk with my mom, my dad and I would each have to take an arm, and as we walked, we had to be careful because if she stepped on a pebble or a crack, she was in serious pain. It wasn't unusual to walk into the living room and see her holding her hands and rocking and crying in pain. She tried everything that was out there, you know, the gold shots, the pills, the whatever there was. And then one day, I changed, became a vegetarian, and I tried to share with her that she should do this. And we had a friend. I used to work at the Gimbel Eye Center. Some of you know that one. And I used to be an ophthalmic technologist back then. And we would go to the Calgary Stampede and have a booth, and we would do cholesterol testing and so forth. And I had a friend that was a nutrition doctor who I worked with. And so I took the day off when my mom and dad came to visit. And I took my mom to the Stampede, and I had it all arranged that this doctor would talk to her, because sometimes family you're too close to share information with, they don't listen. And so I wanted him to share with her the benefits of a vegetarian diet. And he was a very nice man, and I said, be very careful with her hands, you know, it'll hurt, and you know, she won't let anyone touch. Well, he was very gentle, and after 15 minutes, she walked away, and I said, so what do you think? Isn't he a nice man? She goes, no, don't like him. He's telling me to be a rabbit and just eat lettuce. And and I thought for sure he would win her heart because he's just that loving kind of person, you know. And I said, well, Mom, just come stay with us for a while, and I'll cook for you and teach you. And, you know, she taught me how to cook, and so this was kind of different. So they did. They came and stayed with us for a number of weeks. And, you know, after a month or so, and she went back home and she continued, everything changed for her. All the inflammation and the pain disappeared. It was so neat they moved back to where we lived, to the same city, and we would watch them walking hand in hand for 2 miles a day. Like this should never have happened. Like she couldn't even comb her hair. And now she was back to baking bread and carrying our babies and washing her floor. And it was, we couldn't undo, where her wrists are fused and things like that, but the inflammation and pain disappeared. And she would come to church and she would always talk to some of the other ladies, that had arthritis real bad. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry this weekend, oh, my achy joints. And, they go back and forth and discuss it, right? And then they make their way up the stairs to go sit down. And well, pretty soon my mom was able to walk in and smile and walk up the stairs and have no pain. And they would say to her, well, what did you do? What happened? Like, why are you in no pain? And so she would say, well, my daughter helped me. If you call her, she'll help you too. And so they would call me and I try to suggest things and, don't eat this, maybe eat more of that. No, can't do it. So then I'd say, well, there's some books in the library downstairs of the church. I'll go and get them for you. Well, I can't walk down there. I'll get them for you. Oh, yeah, no. So I said, you know what? When you need my help, let me know. But you have to make that decision and make that change. And over time, they'd come in eventually in a wheelchair, and eventually they couldn't walk at all, and their lives never changed. And my mom continued to live until she was 91 and on no medications for arthritis. So it's a life-changing thing. I saw it firsthand, and that pushed me even more into believing in this diet and this lifestyle and what it can do for you. So I know we don't have much more time. It's 4:30 now. So I just want to say this. There's so much more information I can share with you. But just pick a couple of things that I've shared with you today. Try to implement it and grow on that. Build on that. Don't go home and get all excited and, rip everything out of your cupboard and just kind of say, that's it, no more of it. You might get discouraged and you might go backwards. You don't want to do that. Just kind of take it as it comes, make those changes, learn from one another, encourage each other. Tomorrow, I hope you do come because we are doing a cooking school tomorrow. So this is the chance that you can learn and implement some of the stuff that we have shared today. And I'll share much more information tomorrow as well as we're cooking and as we're discussing different products. But don't give up on this. I always say there's nothing closer to your heart than your refrigerator. And when I pick on it, I can be in trouble. But I'm not from around here, so I'm allowed to say what I want and then leave, right? And so, I hope that you'll take some of what I've said and give it a good try. Just as a quick little ending testimony, I once went up to Fort McMurray actually to speak, and I was told, this is a tough one. This is where people are coming and going, and this is the gas and oil, and these are hardcore people, and we'll just see how this goes down, So they rented a hall, and I got there, and I stayed with some people, and this man said to me, well, I met this man who wants to come, but he doesn't want, this information. He's not sure about it, and so he called and he wanted to talk to me, and so I encouraged him to come. And so that next Saturday night is when we were doing it, and it was snowing out, it was blizzarding, and I thought, who's going to come in this? It was like, I always go Northwest Territories and Fort McMurray when it's -40. They never invite me in the summer. Must be the dead quiet time. They need some kind of excitement. So here I am there, and so I walk in, I'm thinking, who's going to show? And we had a lineup out the door, standing in the snow down the road, waiting to get in. And it was so busy and loud in this gymnasium. And I walk past, and this guy says to me, are you Darlene Blaney? And I recognized his name and from the voice from the phone, and I turned and I said, yes. And we connected just instantly like that. And then he sat down, and through my program, he was asking question after question after question. He was interrupting so much that people started to get extremely annoyed with him. And he was trying to trip me up. So I just kept answering those questions, and we made it all the way through. And the next day, he came back, and he came back with friends from all over. And anyways, he was very happy at the end. And the program, they didn't get all the expenses covered. And he sat down and wrote a check to cover everything. and to even make sure that I'd come back. And 1 month later, they wanted me back already. So I came back, and when I walked into those same people's house to stay, as I walked in, they said, come quick, he's on the news, you guys see this. And he had charts he was holding up, and he had a jar of quinoa, and he's like, you gotta see this. You know, she says just do 5 things. She's only said do 5 things. He said, and look what happens, my sugars come down, and this and this. He says, could you imagine if I did everything? I'd live forever. And anyways, they didn't have to do any advertising. He did it all. It was amazing. That gym was packed again, and people had their cell phones on, and it was amazing. So, you know, just take a few things. Hopefully it's as much life-changing for you. But I'll say, you know, I teach this because I want to learn it. And so I'm like you. I keep learning. I keep striving. We learn from each other. So I just hope I've encouraged you in some way today. So I know there's probably a couple of questions. So if you have a question, put up your hand, and he has a microphone for you, and we'll try to answer some questions quickly.
I've been reading more about kidney stuff.
Yes.
So they say you shouldn't have phosphorus or phosphate, and that's in every legume very, very high, extremely high. So if you have kidney problems, it's not a way, you can't do the plant-based diet as a source of protein. It's very difficult.
Well, when it comes to phosphates, I believe, though, you're saying animal products don't have phosphates?
So are lentils and beans are high
in
in
phosphate.
phosphorus and phosphate.
But the difference is it has fiber, and that fiber can help compared to the animal products that also have it but does not have the fiber. So that can make that difference. Yeah. Interesting. I know like potassium is a big one for people too with kidney issues. But the phosphorus, yeah, I believe it's about the fiber though that makes that difference. I'll have to research that a bit more too though, personally. Yeah. Yes, to balance it, yeah. But then animal products are higher in phosphorus for that purpose, but doesn't have the fiber. So with the fiber, it's not going to pull calcium out the same. Because if you think about the highest in osteoporosis are like Eskimos, and well, I guess we're not calling them that anymore, but you know, like up north, eating seal and whales and all of that are the highest for, you know, losing a lot of the calcium. And those that are plant-based have the strongest bones today. So it's got to be within that fiber more. I don't know, I will research it more too though. Other questions? Oh, yes.
Maybe it's on. Okay, maybe if you could explain mushrooms. Mushrooms are high in cholesterol, and I know a lot of people here, us ourselves, especially Ukrainians, they love collecting those mushrooms and make mushroom dishes. But mushrooms is a fungus.
Mushrooms are a fungus, so eating a little bit of mushrooms here or there is not a big deal. Usually we have antifungal agents to help fight that. But the problem today is we've got our fruit is picked green, and they're using antifungal agents, so we're not getting the antifungal in our diet anymore. So we're getting too much fungus in our diet, and we know cancer is very much fungus and yeast-based. So we do have to be careful of how much fungus that we do consume, and mushrooms are that. Medicinal mushrooms are different. Like turkey tail mushroom is very good for boosting immune system. Even when I'm working with my clients, though, with cancer, I don't tend to promote a lot of even the medicinal mushrooms. I don't know as much about them, but they're a little bit different. But regular mushrooms in your everyday cooking, it's good to limit them for that reason because of the fungus. But then also keep in mind, natural fungal foods is corn. Corn is like one of your worst for a fungal food. In fact, if you take corn now and you grind it up and you put it on your garden, it will work like a pesticide. And so you want to make sure that you're going with a organic, non-GMO corn whenever you use it. But if you're fighting cancer, we want to really back down on the fungus. And so anyone fights cancer, I pull them off of corn as well. Mushrooms, chocolate, peanuts have that fungal agent as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, that's it. I got off easy. Either that or everyone's tired out. It is late. You've had a big day already, and it is warm in here. Oh, one more question? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is a question and maybe a comment kind of. In the busy society that we are, our meal times are so crazy, okay? And I find myself, having a good breakfast, but then the rest of the day is just like
Right.
awful.
And that's, and at least if you have a good breakfast, though, you've started it right. Even if you only ate breakfast, you've done good. Your highest absorption and nutrients should come in the morning. By noon, you should have 50% in, because as the day goes on, it decreases your absorption and your metabolism. So that's why we say the larger meal, and then, you go smaller as the day goes on. But it is good to come up with meal times and sleep and wake up time to be on that regular 24-hour circadian rhythm.
So you should be then, if you eat every morning at 6 o'clock, you should be 7 days a week at 6 o'clock, not on the weekend deciding to eat at 10 or 11 o'clock breakfast, right?
Ideally, yes, because your stomach gets used to promoting or making hydrochloric acid and that in preparation for the meal to come. So you're on that schedule that it gets used to it. But if you fall off once in a while, your body compensates. But ideally, yes, because it prepares for that meal to come.
So your digestion changes then every time.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Very much so. Yes.
Sorry, me again. I wrote these down while you were talking. So
Sure.
when you're talking about having seeds and grains and bell peppers, like I heard bell peppers are one of the worst in terms of toxic chemicals used on them. I haven't eaten them for years because of that, unless they're organic. So in your talk, would you not, because we had a wonderful speaker too who talked about glyphosate and how it's used to desiccate all of those grains. It seems really important to have organic in all of that.
It's true. I mean, organic is the ultimate. But put it this way, I remember once listening to a news, and they said, mothers should not breastfeed their babies anymore, for the reason that the toxins are being stored in the fat and released into the milk. And so it's like, what? But when you think about animal products, it's very concentrated in the fat, in the muscle of an animal. So when we're eating meat, you're getting the highest concentration of all these chemicals, of all these sprays, of all that. Your vegetables and that, yes, but in the long run, it's actually way less than eating the meat itself. If it has not, organic fed, whatever, I guess will be different. But that is very concentrated in the muscles as well. So something more to think of. Where we can go organic, we go for it, of course. Or do your veggie washes can help lift a lot of that off. Not always all of it, but it can lift off a good portion as well. And just do the best you can, because in the long run, sometimes you have to kind of, we're always striving to do better. And so that's where you got to start where you are and keep striving. But if I told everyone they have to eat all organic and only this and only that, they won't try anything, right? So you got to start where you are. It's kind of like when people get into water and they say, well, should I have distilled? And some will say, I need reverse osmosis. And I'm not here to fight water. I'm here to say drink water. And yeah, I have my perspective of what the best water is for sure, but I usually don't promote and push that. I want people to drink water first. And then let's go to the next step and the next step. Does that make sense? But yes, like definitely strawberries, for example. I will occasionally eat a strawberry now, but for the number of years I never touched them. After taking a course that I learned they are highly toxic, sprayed with a chemical they use in a lab to induce cancer in mice. And so, anytime you can get more local strawberries, even if they're not organic, around here, they don't use those sprays. So try to get things grown around you and just wash your things and do the best you can do. Yeah. Yes.
You mentioned a lot of anti-inflammatory foods, but you never mentioned curcumin or turmeric. Is there any?
Well, that's because we weren't spending the night. Otherwise, it is in my slides. It is in my slides, but it's probably like another 100 slides down. But yes, for sure. Turmeric, the active ingredient in turmeric is curcumin, and very good for inflammation, for pain, vitamin A. It can even speed up make your fat cells vibrate to help you lose weight, boost your immune system. Yep. It's good for you, definitely. Keep on keeping on. In fact, and good for immune system, where some people even mix turmeric with garlic and ginger and, that flu bomb they call it. So, yes.
It seems like a lot of these things like turmeric and stuff are good for you, like anti-inflammatory, but a lot of the foods that we eat that cause inflammation, a lot of people want to just take that extra thing instead of cutting out the things that actually cause the inflammation. They wanted these, magic
fixes.
Cures.
Yes, and that's a good point. Especially having a health food store, we see a lot of that.
Yeah.
People come in and they want the pill. They don't want to be told what to change. And I do consulting, and I remember I had this nice young teacher come in, and we discussed everything. And some people, they leave and you kind of hope, okay, this is going to make a difference for them. And others, they leave and you go, oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait. In 1 week, she's going to totally be, turned around. And so I'm all excited, and she's excited, and everything's good, and she's just going out the door. And she says, oh, one more question. I said, sure. And she goes, is there a pill I can take instead? And I looked at her, and my heart dropped, and I went, no, there's no pill, no. No, just do what I told you. But it's true, that's the thing, we're doing this to ourselves. And then we want the magic pill to reverse it so that we don't have to change. We can keep on with what we're enjoying and then maybe just keep taking that magic pill. And sometimes we do the same thing as Christians, right? Well, I can do this and this and this, and I'll pray and God will heal me. But we all have a responsibility. And as a Christian, we have a greater responsibility because he created these bodies and we are responsible for them, and he wants to live in them, and we have to give that environment the same way that, Daniel, how he stood strong through all this. We are being tested today. And diet was in the beginning of the Garden of Eden where it was an issue, and it's being an issue still today. So, one thing that I didn't cover in my talk as well with the taste buds, the good news is every 14 days your taste buds change. And they change, the old cells slough off, and you make new ones. And they change according to what you eat. So if you're not a vegetable lover, if you push yourself for 14 days, day 15 you'll want vegetables.
Even tomatoes?
What, even tomatoes? Is that what you said? Possibly. Unless you could claim you're allergic to them, maybe. All right. Well, if that's all, I think let's maybe stand and we'll have a closing prayer if that's okay. All right. Father in heaven, again, we thank you for this day. We thank you for an opportunity, Lord, that we can just come apart from our daily schedule, and thank you for the opportunity to learn of how wonderful you created our bodies, and what an honor it is to be known that we are created in your image. Lord, we just ask that you'll help us to take things to heart. Help us to hear your voice and acknowledge things that we might need to change personally in our lives and any way that's possible to better ourselves, because we know that our sole purpose is to serve you and our fellow man, and we can't do that when we're sick. So we just ask, Lord, for your healing hand upon each of us, and not just physically, but also mentally and spiritually. Be with us now as we go our separate ways. Be with us as we begin a new week, and give us opportunities to share. This we pray in your name. Amen.